my name is Colleen Devlin. I am a researcher for Secure Fisheries, which was part of the One Earth Future Foundation. Today, I'm going to speak to you about the findings from our fisheries conflict database, which we built from collecting data from newspaper articles to better understand the causes and consequences of fisheries conflict. So what is fisheries conflict? We define it as an incident in which a fisheries resource is contested, disputed, or the source of conflict between a minimum of two actors. And we investigated 6 countries around the Horn of Africa between 1990 and 2017. Our methodology built upon Bob Pomeroy's fish war cycle, which provides a foundation of understanding for key drivers of fisheries conflict. This is our complete time series. You'll notice there are 3 clusters of conflict. The first is in the late 1990s, and that was driven largely by an influx of refugees from neighboring civil wars. In the mid-2000s is our second cluster. That was driven by piracy. And in the mid-2010s was our third cluster, and that was driven largely by government crackdowns. We found 684 fisheries conflict events. They're shown here according to their violence score. So low-level intensity events mean they were just verbal conflicts. And then the largest circle means that it was physical harm was involved. So this could include fatalities, injuries, or sexual assault. 2/3 of our country conflicts were in Kenya and Somalia. This is no surprise because, of course, conflict is going to fishing is happening. So Kenya, Somalia, and Tanzania were the most common places for fisheries conflict to occur. 36% of actor participation was fishers, with domestic fishers being over 1/5 of all actor participation. The other major group of actors was the government, and most often the government involved was the federal government. The most common drivers of conflict that we found were access to fishing grounds, illegal fishing, the presence or actions of foreign fishers, weak governance, and crime. And for us, crime was most often piracy. Fisheries conflict consequences. We recorded just over 4,000 cases of arrest, just approximately 1,500 cases of abduction, just about 500 injuries, just over 400 fatalities, and 15 cases of sexual assault. Injuries, fatalities, and sexual assault were likely underreported in the newspaper articles. These numbers are probably larger than what we found. We found 3 major hotspots in our study region. The first was the Somali region, where conflict began with illegal fishing. Domestic fishers created their own coast guards to defend their territory from foreign fishers who were coming in to steal their fish. When organized crime got involved, it grew into what became known as Somali piracy, and eventually international warships arrived to stop piracy because this is a very important region for international trade, but the arrival of international warships created its own fisheries conflict problem. The second hotspot was the southern Red Sea. The Hanish Islands, which are sort of at the bottom of the V in this image, are disputed between Eritrea and Yemen, so a lot of conflict was over that territory. In more recent years, the Saudi-led coalition was targeting Yemeni fishers during the Yemeni civil war, so we recorded a lot of conflict in that area. Our third hotspot is Lake Victoria. A lot of the conflict in Lake Victoria is driven by the lucrative Nile perch, whose stocks have been declining over the past 3 decades. The importance of this fish has led these governments to begin asserting their territorial sovereignty. They started to care who was fishing in their waters. And in more recent years, these governments have had government crackdowns over illegal fishing. So the image here is a mass burning of confiscated fishing nets. Conflict intensity, the dark blue here indicates situations where the government or the environment was so hostile to the fishing community that fishers just stopped fishing. So average conflict intensity was highest in Somalia, the Puntland region of Somalia, as well as the border regions of Lake Victoria. Our conclusions include the presence of the international community, both international warships and foreign fishers, as one of the major causes of maritime instability and fisheries conflict around the Horn of Africa. We found it's better to prevent conflicts than try to manage them once they begin. And we found that fisheries conflict is related to the presence of other forms of conflict, which leads to future research we'd like to investigate, particularly particularly how is fisheries conflict linked to or affected by other forms of armed conflict or political violence? Thanks.